Our work group is a combination of work groups 4 and 5, and the name is Transforming Education Community Rules Advancement Work Group. Next slide, please. So a little bit about us. The rules in Transforming Education Community Rules Advancement actually stands for Community Responsive and Youth-Inspired Learning Experiences for Scientific Advancement. And as a combined work group, our goal is to empower educational institutions and communities to foster collaborative thinking that further drives community responsive and youth-inspired innovation. So by closing the loop and leveraging agile networks, we help youth-inspired learning experiences grow with attention to cultural perspectives, workforce training, and economic development. Next slide, please. How did we get here? So as Mike mentioned, we had original working groups that had wouldn't it be great if statements, and that's the WIBGIs. And so we actually had 6 WGI statements combined into 4 working group themes. And now our umbrella working group is taking all these themes for building local capacity, leveraging regional universities, as well as culturally inspired culturally responsive youth-inspired curricula and youth-inspired toolkits into what we have created. So next slide, please. So the core team is made up of Chris Burnson, who is in the East Coast. He's in a primarily undergraduate institution. Bob Brennan is in the central US in Oklahoma and has Native Americans as well as other diverse populations in his institution. Heidi is in California. She's in Hispanic serving institution. And I'm in a community college in the Midwest. And Widodo is in an HBCU in Texas. So a very broad range in our core team. Next slide, please. Other members in the work groups that are in this combined work group are listed here. And next slide, please. So just a little bit to update on what the core team has done in this arena. Since Boise, Chris was awarded an NSF Research and Undergraduate Institutions grant last month, and that supports working with K through 12 students in environmentally friendly plastics projects. Bob is working with his community and schools as well to implement a mobile, culturally responsive STEM curriculum with underrepresented students. Heidi has received a faculty incentive grant that focuses on water quality related research. And she's also working on environmental justice and community engaged research. I was awarded an NSF EPIC grant, and that's for enabling partnerships to increase innovation capacity. And we will be creating and developing a centralized grant system, our office here at the community college, as well as another NSF grant for Project Visions, which will provide support for our faculty to do research in STEM fields. Widodo has obtained NSF funding as the PI for Computer Information Science and Engineering grant program in August, and also another NSF grant for the HBCU undergraduate program grants back in May. So we have been very active in this group as a core team. The next slide, please. So as a work group, umbrella work group, this is what we want to do for our next steps. We have crafted a community agreement, and I'll go over that next. We also have some plans for implementation funding. And our final product that we would like to come up with is an adaptable youth-inspired implementation toolkit and resource guides for youth-inspired research. Next step, please. So the first one, our community agreement for our work group, is we had to, I mean, as I mentioned, we're all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast and all over the US, but we have these four tenets for our interactions together. First of all, we have bi-weekly meetings, and that will be on Thursdays from 4 to 5 p.m. Central Time. We also have shared work group goals, and that's to advance youth-inspired research, incorporate UIR into teaching curriculum, explore further collaborations, and promote culturally and community responsive learning experiences. Our short-term outputs are up to where we are here today for the microlab, and our long-term outputs or products are to submit grant applications and develop the youth-inspired toolkit and database of resources that I'd mentioned. Next slide, please. So in terms of funding, this is what we're looking at in terms of the progression of how we would like to implement our objectives. We'd like to submit a conference grant application as a core team so that we can pull our thoughts together and organize them into how to move forward in youth-inspired research. The next phase is to submit an overall planning grant application to start implementing those various initiatives that we come up with in the conference grant. The third phase, we will submit targeted grant applications for focus on implementation in local communities. And also during all those phases, since we have already received awards, to conduct pilot studies with additional grant funding, specifically in youth-inspired research. Next slide, please. Our conceptual framework for our work group deals with teaching, research, and community engagement. So with teaching, we want to align curriculum to youth-inspired research and use these various mechanisms from curriculum to career training. The research area, we would like to involve the various educational institutions in youth-inspired research experiences, from community colleges to undergraduate four-year institutions, graduate institutions, and interdisciplinary format. And very importantly, for community engagement, we want to align our partnerships with the community for youth-inspired research, including nonprofit agencies, governments, the local, state, and national levels, private institutions, and industry. Next slide, please. Oh, before I left that, I had the database there as well, and I think that would merge well with Zoe's ideas for the Launchpad, because this is a grassroots going up to their national level. We would be able to provide information for that. So our summary outcomes for transforming education through community rules advancement are to provide relevant training and curriculum designs that provide innovative student learning experiences. We hope that you will join us in strengthening our community connections and furthering economic development, as well as our last one, to implement toolkit resources and sharing of best practices. Next slide. So come join us in transforming our umbrella work group of transforming education through community responsive and youth-inspired learning experiences for scientific advancement. My contact information is there. You can use the QR code to get that contact information. I'd be happy to answer any questions as well.
All right, thank you, Josephine. So we've got a couple for you. First one, who is the audience for the toolkit? Is it envisioned as directed towards academics wanting to engage users or industry, or is it more general for the users, industry, non-academics as well?
So it would start off with the academic component, because we're all in academic institutions, but because we're so heavily involved in the community, it would have a very great component to that. And as you can see from our name, we're sort of flipping this from research being started in labs to the youth-inspired component, where our communities can share with us what their issues and their problems are that we need to do research on to help with economic development and industry needs. And from a community college perspective, we do that very well in terms of our workforce training, very closely with listening to the community.
Okay, there's a couple more. What gaps do you see in the curriculum that's been developed to date?
So in terms of the actual curriculum gaps, I think that would depend on what discipline that we're looking at the issues from. And again, it would be very much driven with the use part of it, the community part, that would allow curricula to be responsive to the issues and the problems that are in the communities that our work group members will interact with.
Okay.
So they would identify the gaps rather than us sitting in our high academic seats saying, you know, oh, this is a gap. It's the community, and this is very community driven, whether it's industry, community agencies, etc., that will help identify the gaps in the curriculum that we can address and help meet those needs.
Okay, follow-up to that was, I was informed there are regulations regarding limits of what types of funding community college can accept. Where could I find more information about this? And if true, is it a constraint blocking potential innovation?
Oh, I think that's going to need to be bumped up to our NSF and
May need to pump that one. Okay, no problem. We can do that.
But I am encouraged though by the EPIC endeavors, and also by NSF in general, that there has been more of an inclusive and open effort now to bring in those who have not had a voice or have not been able to participate in the past, to provide technical assistance and availability of funding to participate in this process. And so I'm very encouraged with that. And I think that's part of what our work group is also wanting to draw upon, is that, you know, this is an opportunity where it has not been in the past for community colleges and these underrepresented entities who are not R1s, who are not used to getting all this funding, to be participants in the youth inspired and innovation arena.